Afternoon and Happy New Year. We'll call the public safety meeting for the City of Hudson in order on January 9th, 2020. I would also like to say an appreciation to our police officers, the National Police Officers Day.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for all the hard work.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Roll call.
Alderperson Holmes.
Here.
Alderperson Hall.
Here.
Alderperson Morset.
Here, minutes of the regular meeting, November 7th.
Move to approve.
I'll second. Wondering if we wouldn't mind taking, it was Chief Williams that was absent? If you could just reflect that in the minutes? Where'd you? The last meeting, November.
Says he was here.
I was here.
Oh, you were here on this one? Oh, my bad.
Quit stirring problems, Bill. Any other correction? Well, that wasn't a correction.
That wasn't a
right?
correction.
Okay.
I withdraw.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Minutes are passed. Number 3, parking. A, discussion possible action on a request for no parking on Heritage Boulevard. Chief Jeff, and I guess this is also yours, Bill?
Yeah, so we, I believe you received an email from a resident of Heritage Boulevard. Is Marcella here at all? No? Okay. Just talking about one of the streets in Heritage Greens, Heritage Boulevard, looking to have parking on one side of the street instead of both sides of the street. Really looking at Heritage Greens overall, all the streets beyond Heritage Boulevard are parking on one side of the street because they are generally 24 to 26 feet wide. Heritage Boulevard was completed about 4 years ago, I think it was, and so we never did place the no parking on one side. So I would actually like to move this to Public Works. In talking with Mr. Mraz, our Director of Public Works, he was saying that anything really guideline-wise, anything under 28 feet, the recommendation is to have parking only on one side of the street. So I'd like to move this to Public Works to both add no parking signs on Heritage Boulevard as outlined here in the packet, but also go through the roads in Heritage Greens to make sure that signs are up. I know that there are a couple of requests through other neighbors for more signage.
Are you looking for this to be a recommendation to Public Works or for them to make that decision?
I'd like to make the recommendation.
Okay.
And are you making the recommendation for parking on, no parking on both sides of the street, or?
No parking on one side of the street.
Okay.
On
Which
Heritage
side?
Boulevard.
Which side?
That is a fair question. I think that would be,
It's a preference. Yeah, go ahead.
Dean?
Yeah, Mike and I were talking about this earlier today.
You state your name, it's just for the...
Sure. Dean Chamberlain, City Engineer, thank you. So Mike and I were talking about this earlier today, and generally try to limit the parking on the side that has like more driveways, just because you have more space on the other side of the street to actually park more cars. Kind of depends on the situation. Sometimes there's, fire hydrants or something that
Yeah.
cause, there to be. I think if we kicked it to Public Works, we could at that point in time kind of make a decision on which side would make more sense, since we haven't kind of come to a determination ourselves, but we'd be willing to look at that further in that.
It's all right to leave it open, right, Bill?
Yeah, absolutely. So I recommend that we do close one half of the street for parking, but leave it up to Public Works too.
Do we know if the development intended one-sided street parking in that, Mike, or don't you know offhand? Okay.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. B, discussion possible action on a request for a 15-minute parking space at 407 2nd Street, the sub-house.
Yeah, this is mine, I suppose. So Mike Mraz contacted me with this request. We initially decided to put it through Public Works. Public Works approved the recommendation, and then we should probably bring it back here too, because it does revolve around parking.
All parking issues in the
Yep.
future come to public safety.
Fair enough. So that's why we're.
Just letting you know.
Yep, so that's why we're here. The sub-house basically had a concern because most of their patrons are stopping in for a quick period of time to just pick up, call out, or pick up and go type orders, carry out type orders. Not a lot of their sales are actually people sitting in their establishment and eating. And there is no 15-minute sign down there, whereas on the north side of downtown, we have a substantial amount of 15-minute signs for the different businesses for this very purpose. So I guess in our thought process, it makes sense and it's fair. So,
Do we have hours of operation that we could move around, or is that something we can install into the parking system?
well, it'd be installed in the parking system the same as all the other.
Okay, and are they
15.
used after their business hours? Or they sit empty?
You know, I don't know the answer to that. The
I think we should-
15-minute space themselves?
Yeah,
What are their
Yeah, what
business
is-
hours, do you know?
That's a good question.
don't know.
So do we currently have 15-minute parking on that block on Second Street, right? Just on the other side, or on the other? Wired Robin, got it.
I guess I'm not opposed to it. I guess I think we just need to open them up after business hours, just because we struggle to have enough parking as it is.
So it would be something like 15-minute parking from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. or whatever their hours are.
Yeah. And can we do that in the system, the new system? Or just
Well,
gonna
if
have to
the
be a,
sign says
it's a
it'd be just
personnel.
be a personnel training issue.
all right.
Well,
They close at 7 p.m. according to Google.
how many blocks, here's what I would want to know, is how many blocks in downtown do we have more than one space on each block that's 15-minute? You know what I'm asking? I'm just wondering if that 15-minute parking that already exists there, could that also be utilized? I know it's a little bit further of a walk, but I'm concerned that if we're opening up the door to adding 15-minute parking spaces on each, multiple on one block, where does it end?
Right. We have 4 or 5 of them already.
In total?
Yeah, the 300 block, 500 block, 600 block, 700 block. So this will go on the 400 block.
Okay, well, there are already 2 15-minute spots at the north end of that block.
The ones that are right in front of Wired Robin?
Well, is that what, I use them for the Chinese place.
That too?
So, anyway, so we've already got 2, but you know, that is at the other, pretty close to the other end of the street. We want to make it convenient for people to be able to use the downtown businesses. I'll make the motion to approve for only during business hours.
Okay. Is there a second? I'll second.
Can we have a discussion?
Well, of course.
So
Limited
the
for you.
request is for Second Street, right in front.
Yeah.
What about the street just to the south? We keep it off of Second Street.
Commercial?
Yeah, commercial.
Is that commercial?
I think so.
There's that angled parking there. Whenever I come downtown, I mean, that's the first place I look, and generally there's a spot open there. Could we just mark something like that? I just don't know about on Second Street, setting that precedent.
We already said it.
We already
Already
said it
had
that
it.
we have them on each block, but not multiple on each block, correct?
Yeah, there's one in front of the Moose, there's one in front of Art Doyle's, there's 2 by Mickelson's, there's 1 down by the Chamber. So it's been set. There is no precedence to,
Okay. Yeah, we could use a map of the 15-minute spots downtown.
I think it's on the new map.
Is it?
Yeah, but we're waiting on the new shipment of brochures to come in.
Updated,
Okay.
Been going like hotcakes.
I guess I would
Does that
just-
make sense to you?
It does make sense. I would love to see alternatives and to that point, see a map of what we have where.
Well, there is a motion and a second.
Correct.
Do you want to hold, are you interested in holding off till next meeting? Do you want to do more research, or is there something else you want to do different?
Yeah, I would love to see just where we have all the other 15-minute parking spots, what the hours of operations are of Subhouse, that if we do that, what would that signage say? Are we able to close the 15 minutes, say at 5 PM, and then open it up to longer parking at 5 PM? I just feel like that we're not having enough information. Or I don't feel like I have enough information
You
to make a
interested in
decision.
that?
I can go along with that. I'll withdraw the motion then.
Okay. So how do you want to word that, Bill? Postpone until next meeting?
Move to postpone to the next meeting where we could have a map of all the existing 15-minute parking in our downtown overlay. And
Yeah, and for sure have the hours of operation. for
hours
the
of
Subhouse.
operation with Subhouse, thank you, yes. And if we have that flexibility with the new parking system
Yes.
to delineate a time frame for the 15-minute
Well,
parking.
again, I think that's a personnel training thing. We'll figure that out too as
And
well.
it's in the system.
It
you
is,
know.
okay.
We just have to mark that
Gotcha.
spot,
Okay, so withdraw that part.
geolocate that spot in the system.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. C, discussion possible action on a request for no parking in the alley behind the Postmark Grill.
It's me again. So Postmark Grill Management contacted me about concerns with people parking, blocking the garbage company's access to their dumpster that is immediately behind their building. They've been just placing cones there, but they move the cones because we have to plow, and especially in the wintertime. The cones get moved, and then the cones then get placed back there, and then people park there, and then the garbage trucks can't empty their dumpsters, which creates a problem.
And it's a limited time.
A limited time, they just wanted, the garbage is, unless it's an anomaly, right, the garbage is there by 10 o'clock. So they're asking for a restriction of parking from 6 AM to 10 AM
How often is the garbage picked up, do you
a
know?
week.
Once a week. So what day of the week is that usually?
I didn't ask that question.
Okay. 'Cause I hate to tie up parking spot, although it would just be in the morning.
Right.
How full is that lot at that time of day? Do you have any idea?
I don't think it's very full.
It's not the lot, it's just those three.
It's just-
It would just be
Three
three
spots
spots,
right there.
okay. Yeah, I drove down there to see what we're talking about.
Do you know, or do they know if those people, individuals that are parking there, they're not people that maybe live there in an apartment, right? I mean,
They
this
don't,
is,
they don't know. They gave me no indication that they knew who those people were, whether they were just downtown patrons, whether they were
Gotcha.
employees at other businesses, or where they were.
because I could see downtown patrons or employees at a businesses, but as long as
They're
we're
all
not
pub-
taking away like an apartment spot or whatever,
Well, they're all public parking
they're
spots.
public spaces, right?
Well, at 6 AM and 10 AM, there's nobody there except for left cars that would be there, if that's even the case.
I would be willing to approve this if we knew which day of the week, because why should we restrict parking 5 days a week or 7 days a week for only once a week pickup?
Whose lot is that? Is that the city's, that is, or their lot?
Well, if it's public parking, it's
What's
gotta be the
the,
city's.
that's the north lot.
No,
It's the,
it's three
it's
spots.
it's kind of, well, it's the offshoot of the north lot, that little alleyway.
But is it illegally ours? Be signing.
I don't know what's legally ours.
So, so, all right, on this picture, they want the spots that
Those three.
are circled there?
Those two red cars and that black car.
okay. I thought maybe the ones across,
Well,
because,
and
I mean, when I went through there, I thought.
I think across the alleyway.
Because, yeah, because I looked.
My,
and-
my circle doesn't really do it justice because. my
Okay, you put in
snipping-
the circle.
Yeah, my snipping tool I was fighting with my computer that day. You can see the
Okay.
dumpsters there on the right
Yeah.
side of the circle. It's across the alley. It's
across the alley. So that's the north lot.
On
It's
the
a
wall.
portion, yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's a portion of that alleyway area there.
I still don't think it's an issue at 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. I mean, they don't open until 11 for lunch, I believe.
Okay. Well, but there might be some employees for the, what are
I don't.
the parking restrictions for that lot? Is it an 8-hour lot, or is it a shorter time period, do you know?
That,
I don't recall.
I don't know. I don't know if that's just paid spots or if that's part of the actual permitted area.
Oh,
You're talking against the wall now, right?
yeah.
I mean, because there's a handicap on the wall, and then it goes in diagonal parking. 2-3 spots.
Yes.
So it wouldn't be the handicap
I think.
spot, it would be the 3 adjacent.
I would like to know, I mean, you know, what about Saturdays and Sundays? You know, that is an example, like, do we mark it Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m.? And we have a
Well, the
lot of
other thing to
events
keep in mind is that
downtown.
parking enforcement doesn't start until 10 a.m. anyway.
Yeah, well, you guys need more information, or are we making this harder than it is?
I think we should get more information. I want smooth pickup for them. I mean, I don't want their garbage sitting there longer than they have to, but I don't think
Do you
that,
have a truck?
what's that?
You got a truck?
No. I'm not offering. But I also don't want to tie up spots that people might want to use.
What's your pleasure?
I think we should put it off. I'm going to make the motion to put this off till the next meeting and get the information on what day the pickup is so that we can restrict it to just that day.
There's not a representative from there here, is there? Either of you guys from the postmark? No? Okay.
I'll second it. I'm wondering if the restaurant has multiple pickups. It might not be just a one,
I would think, you would
You would think it would be
twice a week,
multiple.
maybe.
Okay.
right? But I would like to see more even specific to, you know, is this a Monday through Friday? You know, no parking piece.
Right.
You know, like on Saturday, we have a lot of events in the morning. Be nice
Yes.
to have those spaces. So for that reason too, I'd like to see more information about
Yeah.
what
and-
days we're restricting.
Yeah, one of the issues too, though, is that if there's a holiday during the week, then pickup gets moved one day later. So we'd have to make allowances for that as well, but,
Well, let's find out some more information.
Okay.
Let's not make this harder than it probably
Okay.
is going to be. So,
Sounds good.
what was the motion? Postpone for next?
postpone till next time and get more information.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Number 4, discussion possible action to provide mutual aid to Milwaukee Police Department for the Democratic National Convention.
No. So we got a request, along with, I think, every other agency in the state of Wisconsin, from the Milwaukee Police Department to help provide crowd control and security for the Democratic National Convention coming up this summer. We entered into that agreement with the Richmond, St. Croix County, and Rice Lake and River Falls Police Department to put that crowd control team together. This is part of that. I don't know that any of those agencies are planning on sending their officers. I'm still waiting for confirmation on that. But at minimum, there's an interest, at least from myself, to help, because when the vice president came to town, I got help from places that, and it's all on their dime, and we don't get reimbursed for any of that. They are going to put a grant in for reimbursement for some of this stuff, but if they don't get it, they don't get it, which is why I'm bringing it here to say I think it's something that we should do. I think it's part of our not only professional duty but civic duty to support the state and the law enforcement community and different communities within the state when we crested, because none of us are big enough to handle these events on our own. So regardless if they want to send the whole team down, I would still like to send a carload of officers down to help.
The only question I would have is where's your strength schedule at, and what would it affect, if any, of our shifts covering our city?
On this summer, it should be fine. This summer, we should be full staff by this summer.
All
Should,
right. So you're,
We'll very likely be full staff by this summer.
the agreement says approximately July 10th to July 20th. So how many officers do you envision sending in for that whole 10-day or 11-day period? Or would
Yeah,
it,
4, but they would only get, I mean, they wouldn't get paid the 24 hours a day the whole time they're down there, right? We'd only pay them for the times that they're actually working. And then we'd have to put them up in a hotel and pay for their meals and things, but that's what the grant is for, is to try and reimburse some of that. So if they got that, we wouldn't have to worry about that type of a cost. We'd just be basically paying their wage while they're down there for working. And I don't know yet if it would be the entire time. They might only need them for 3 or 4 days. They might only
Okay.
need them for 2 days.
and it might
this
be
is very-
two for 5 days and two for another 5
Right,
days or
this
something
is
like that.
very early on in the process. They're just trying to plan what types of resources they're going to have available. And that's why that's the early request here, is to try and figure out, so we can supply them with at least an answer from our perspective.
And again, you're talking 4 officers, 2 squads?
4 officers and
That's
2
right.
squads, yeah.
2 squads.
if something came up, Jeff, we can back out of sending them, or are we contracted in?
No, there's no commitment per se that I saw in here.
It's a lengthy contract.
So, yeah, if we had a major thing happen and we had to pull them back, there's room in there to do that.
And I would suggest that we send this to full council for deliberation and discussion.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with Jeff that, we need to cooperate with other agencies, and in order to expect that other agencies will cooperate when we need the help too, so.
Was that a motion, Randy?
Yeah,
I'll second.
okay. I just want to make sure that everybody's comfortable with sending ours and making sure we're still covered.
Yeah.
I do have one question. The grant that is being written for, is that part of this conglomeration of communities, or is the city of Hudson writing for this grant?
No, the city of Milwaukee is writing for this grant.
Got it. And then dispersing it.
Yes.
Understood. Thank you.
And under section 5.11, it talks about agency judgment and priority, where it allows us, that if something happens in our own jurisdiction, they recognize that's a priority and would release the liability from the officers. And be able to recall its agency personnel in accordance with the termination procedures set forth in section 14.
It's a lengthy contract, or whatever proposal.
Yeah.
Any further discussion?
Do you know who would provide that grant? Is it a federal grant, or is it a state grant?
It is a federal grant.
Okay.
I don't know the type of grant or the actual name of it, but it is a federal grant from the federal government.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? We'll recommend a full council discussion. Number 5, discussion possible action on higher visibility speed limit signage on Bear Drive near Boulder Point.
Is Megan here? Do you want to take this? It's probably easier for you to speak.
And Megan, state your name and address for the record,
Yes.
please.
Megan Givens Latch, live at 1321 Boulder Point Drive. Colleen lived in the house for 30 years before us and now lives across the street, so a lot of experience in this whole area. But the area I'm talking about is if you're by Burton Field, going down under the railroad track, it curves there. Boulder Point and Boulder Court are the first 2 cul-de-sacs there. It's a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit there. Why I'm here requesting potentially a flashing speed limit sign, I'm actually requesting it as you're coming into the city, so coming from the country into the city. And I'm requesting it because the sidewalk runs on the northwest side there, north side of it. And we have 2 kids under 2 right now, so a stroller, we're going up to Burton, all the parks all the time. It's a head-on-head collision, and it's a curved road, and cars are cruising in there. Cars are going 45, 55, and not slowing down. And so there's a 25 speed limit right on the corner there. There used to be flags on it. They're now totally washed out and hanging on the backside of it. So it's if you saw what I was talking about, it's a curved road. The sidewalk's on the north side, and obviously the cars are coming. And there's no grass, there's no anything. It's sidewalk, falls right into Bear Drive. So it's 6 inches away. There was a bad accident there on the 4th of July. A car went right into the sidewalk, overcorrected, hit the other side of the road.
You are not the only one. We've had a history of issues on that particular stretch coming in and out, and we've struggled at times to find a safe solution there.
And we aren't the only ones with small children. There's 5 households in these 2 cul-de-sacs with small children, so.
Yeah, I drive that path several days a week going to New Richmond, and there's no, I've never seen any traffic control on there, any police car, or I suppose that would be county
Well,
or town, well, it'd be township for the part that is
beyond
east of
that.
that, yeah. And with those hills and everything, and it's open, I can see people would be driving pretty fast along there.
well, we can certainly reestablish those flags. That's easy enough to do
Yeah.
and cheap enough to do. You're looking for more visibility on the sign, and you'd like to see a flashing.
I would love to see, just because, thank you both Mike and Jeff for the call last week. There's been a cop sitting there on Saturday and on Monday, and Colleen talked to him on Saturday. He had wrote a number of tickets, 20 plus over. So, I mean, they are cruising there. It's just really dangerous.
So there's something warranted there. I mean,
So there is, what I wanted to say was there is additional, I'm not using the right word, but radar, and there's been a police officer sitting there on both Sunday and Monday.
has it helped or slowed anybody?
Monday. Oh, I'm sure. I mean, Tuesday, our little 20-month-old walked to the top of the driveway, and had he been sitting there then, I mean, a car came down at like 55, which is what warranted my phone call last Friday was, I mean, I was standing there and it's just cruising, and I said, I have to make a change. This is so dangerous. And it's so dangerous because there's no grass, there's no anything. It's just really, and it's a curved road. I mean, I've said it 10 times, but yeah.
If you'd come up to and state your name and your address as well. Thank you.
My name's Colleen Maloney, and I live at 1407 Boulder Court, and as I said, I resided at Megan's home for many years. We also have a problem on the other side of the road, the high school kids coming out under the Brew Bridge heading out of town. So she's addressing, I've almost been hit on the sidewalk several times. What she's addressing, but we also have a problem on the other side of the road, particularly when school is let out at the end of the day and other times. So I think that when we address this, we have to address both sides. And I believe the speed limit coming under the bridge is 35 if you're heading out of town. It increases to that. And at one point, it was discussed that there even be a stop sign at either Boulder Point or Boulder Court before you left the city. And I don't know why people did not support that, but that is definitely a way to slow traffic. So I don't know if a flashing sign would be better, if people want to consider a stop sign. I've been almost rear-ended multiple times trying to turn into either Boulder Court or Boulder Point.
A stop sign where was suggested?
Well, it was thought of on the road coming out of the city at Boulder Point or Boulder Court on that main drive.
On
Stop
Bear.
them on Bear?
Yes, but I'm simply bringing that up that as we've talked about things over the years, there has to be a way to slow the traffic down, and that stop sign clearly was not supported. It's not in place, but we are within the city limits.
Yeah,
So
that's not the purpose of a stop sign. Stop signs are to control right of way, not speed.
Okay.
So that's why that probably wouldn't have been supported.
All right. But of course, as I said multiple times, we have stopped or put our blinker on, and we've nearly been rear-ended, and people have circled around us going speeding. So something has to give on both sides of the road.
Yeah,
Thank you.
there's definitely a speed issue there, though.
Yes. Thank you.
How many signs do we have on from Boulder Point down to to Hudson?
One.
There's one.
Once you cross, as you're going well, I guess it would be kind of, southwest into the city. As you pass Boulder Point, you go about another 75 feet or so, and that's a 25-mile speed limit sign. There is a warning sign that, hey, heads up, the speed limit's going to change to 25. And then there's the one sign. Going the other way, I haven't paid that close of attention. It's after you go under the railroad bridge, and then the speed limit changes to 35.
Right. Mike, you want to step to the, let's put you on the spot. How much are our flashing signs, like either speed limit or?
Yeah, about 5,000. But one thing that I want to say, Mike Mraz, Director of Public Works for the City of Hudson, kind of jumping ahead to 8A, and I don't want to steal the thunder there, but as part of that Safe Routes to School program and grant application, this actually was identified in that plan, and we will be applying for a grant to help fund the purchase of a unit, flashing unit, as you're coming into town. Nothing coming out, but coming into town, a radar detected speed limit sign. So it's, like I said, it was identified in that plan, and we know it's a problem, and we're trying to address it through some grant funding. So,
Okay. Well, we can certainly put the flags up again.
yeah, absolutely. Yep.
And just replace those.
Yep, replace
And
flags,
no
put in
actions
flags.
needed because they're there already, just need to be updated.
Yep.
For starters. Is there, and with the speed limits 25 in, 35 out, or
Yes.
maybe we need
More or
to
less.
take a look at consistency?
Would we be allowed to change the speed limit to 25 all the way to the city limit there?
We'll ask our new traffic
Yeah,
engineer
that's right.
for the city.
Dean.
Hi, it's Dean again. Yeah, so I believe state statutes allow the municipality to put any municipal street down to 25 miles per hour. In fact, that's the statutory limit for an urban street unless it's posted otherwise. It seems odd to me that one way would be 25 and one way would be 35 on a street anywhere, and in particular this one. So I'd be very supportive of just making it 25 all the way through. Yeah, those radar speed signs are really good to catch your attention, especially as you're kind of going from our rural area, which is to the east, on Bear Drive. It is rural. It's, coming down the hill. Kind of catches your attention. Hey, your surroundings are changing. There's going to be pedestrians around. There's, you're coming into the urban area. It's a good spot for those radar signs to catch your attention and say, hey, pay attention.
And I would I would add on to that if we were going to do that we'd make that change at the city limit.
Absolutely.
Yep. I would agree with that too.
Because where it is now, it's probably a quarter mile or more into the city limit where it changes. And that's not helping these folks at all because
Right.
it's still 35 past their residences.
Right.
It doesn't even change 25 until after that. So
You
if you're going to
may-
do that, I would recommend that it would be at the city limit, much like it is up on Carmichael. Once you get into the city, it's 25.
Right.
I also add to, if we move, I agree with that, moving the 25 out to the city limit. We may need to look at what the speed limits are kind of east of there, even though we're not the jurisdiction on that. It might be, we might need to coordinate with the town or whoever is the jurisdiction for that road.
I think it goes 35 and then to 45.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they'll kind of step it down or something. If it's 55 to the east and you're going to 25, like, bam.
No, it's 35 and 45.
It does,
35
yeah,
to
I
45.
can't remember where it does.
And it does
or
step down.
whatever,
It goes
so-
from 45 to 35 and then to 25 coming in and then going out, it's 35 to 45.
I'll reach out to the township. I'd like you to as well. Reach out to the townships, pending the formal action that I'm sounding like we're moving to.
Is, kind of not to throw another monkey wrench, is there any space to move from an engineering standpoint, forget about jurisdiction for a second, on Bear Drive to do a little bump out to the right so that somebody could take a left-hand turn into?
You're talking about like a bypass lane or
Yeah.
something like that?
Yeah.
Well, that hasn't been looked at.
And I don't
at
know
least
from an
as far as I
engineering
am concerned.
I mean, jurisdiction would be, yeah.
Sure. I believe, so you're talking about kind of on the south/east side of the road,
Yes,
to the right if you're going out of town?
correct.
Yep.
She was talking about taking a left into that.
Sure. So I know there's a drainage ditch on that side, so we'd have to kind of figure out if that would work with that, but that could be something.
But again,
we
it's
look
not
at.
city jurisdiction on that.
It's city
particular road?
jurisdiction up until, I think it's Boulder Court, which is to
Strawberry.
the east.
Strawberry Lane.
So
So
there
in
could
front of
be-
Boulder Point is the drainage ditch. And I don't know if that's railroad property or there's housing up, I can't, if it's that far. Privately owned. Either way, you know, right of way. So I think
Sure.
if you so desire, we could certainly have you guys look at it.
Look at it, yeah, just to see.
We'd be willing to look at it if directed, so.
Any other discussion
Do we need a formal motion?
Yes. Of what you want to do? You've got a couple things out there.
Right? So it sounds like the direction to update the flags, does that need to
Well,
be rolled
they're
in?
existing, so they
They're
just have to
existing.
update them and get new ones.
And they're writing a grant for the flashing, so we don't need to do any directional piece there, right?
Right.
So it'd really be looking to see if
Speed limit?
the speed limit, changing the speed limit to 25 at the city limit, and to see if there is,
And have city staff look at a possible turn lane. Or, is
So
it a
moved.
turn lane? Bypass.
bypass lane. What he said.
There's a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
So where does this go from here then?
Well, the speed limit can go right to council.
Council, yep, okay. And then
We're
the
asking staff
staff
go
to
ahead
look
and
at
start
the
it now.
bypass, okay. Mhm.
So that's kind of, that's what
Okay.
it's going.
Yep.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? So we will recommend the council the speed limit change at our next meeting, which is, where's the count? 20th? January 20th. And then they're going to look at, staff will look at the bypass lane and probably come back to us at our next safety meeting or sooner? Okay.
And then you'll look to put the sign closer to the city limits so people.
That's included right away, yep. As soon as, if it's approved on our city council meeting on the 20th. So, thank you. It's a start, we'll keep an eye on it. Yep, you're welcome. Number 6, discussion possible action on Vine Street pedestrian safety study.
All right. So before I begin, I just want to let public safety know that this was presented to the Public Works Committee in December. Glenn Van Wormer from SEH came and presented. He was kind of the principal engineer from SEH that developed the draft plan and recommendations. It was 4 hours long. I'll try to keep it to 3 hours and 30 minutes for everybody here tonight. So, obviously this study was created or done based upon the comments that we were receiving from a lot of the residents with the Atwood development. And so what the city did under the direction of the council was to put together a study on the pedestrian movements on Vine Street, and then make some recommendations on how we can more easily get people from point A to point B, especially at Diamond Drive with the YMCA, and then the future expansion of the trail on the north side of Vine going out to the middle school, so on and so forth. So, I'm just going to hit kind of a couple of the highlights here. I'll touch base on the bridge tunnel kind of discussions that were had, and kind of what was thought and what the recommendations on there, and then kind of what is recommended moving forward from SEH's standpoint. So I guess I'll start with the bridge, right? I mean, that was kind of the big thing at Diamond Drive because there's a lot of pedestrian movements there coming from the south residential area going to the YMCA, and, bridge tunnel was floated out there as a possible way to help alleviate some of those pedestrian conflicts there. On the back of the packet, there's actually a sample design of what a bridge would actually kind of look like fitting into there. And, the recommendations or the discussions that we had with SEH at that meeting was, it's almost to meet the grade requirements, the slope requirements from an ADA standpoint, you're having to build a bridge or a tunnel that's, do you remember how many feet long it was, Dean? I think it was like 800 and it was almost 1,000 feet long, right? To go basically 50 feet across the street. So, this is approximately a $2 million project for a bridge to cross 50 feet of road. So, I mean, it really wasn't feasible, and there's a lot more in-depth pros and cons in the study that you can look at, but, from a practicality standpoint, it probably isn't the best option there moving forward, just because of the number of pedestrians. There's pedestrians there, but it's not to the point where it's like a college campus where you're getting hundreds and hundreds of students crossing a 4-lane highway, that type of thing. I think the count was approximately 50 pedestrians when they took the count on average per day, so not terribly a lot. So, based upon the conversations, it was kind of like, yeah, it was probably not the best location for that. Okay, so then if you go to page, if you have it in front of you, otherwise I can. Page 14 of the study gets into kind of the suggested improvements to consider. Okay, and the first improvement that SCH proposed was raised medians and designated left-hand turn lanes at certain intersections. And the reason why we do raised medians is it gives pedestrians a place for pedestrian refuge halfway across the street. It also helps lower the speeds. Having multiple medians in succession, it kind of narrows the lanes a little bit, creates that, I'm kind of getting encroached by, the curbs and so on and so forth, so people tend to slow down. So if we do, they recommended doing one kind of at the Atwood property, just to the west of the entrance, the north entrance into the Atwood property, doing one there, doing another one at Diamond, another one at Grandview, and then another one possibly at Spruce Street. Because then you would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, including Wisconsin, kind of medians in that that roadway there that would help get people across the road, give them a safe place to stop instead of having to look traffic coming this way and this way. They can just look traffic coming from the left, cross halfway, and then focus on the traffic coming from the right. So that was kind of one suggestion. The other one was moving the crosswalks to locations where we're not having pedestrians cross in the middle of intersections. So right now, like at Grandview, the pedestrian ramps are actually kind of forcing the people out into the middle of the road, the intersection, right? So there are some preliminary schematics of what it would look like if we would actually push those pedestrian ramps back off the intersection closer to the stop bars, a lot shorter distance, the bigger places for landing area for ADA purposes, and that would help kind of shorten the length of the road that the pedestrians are actually having to cross, right? So that was kind of the second recommendation. Third was the RFB at Diamond. They highly suggested keeping that there because it is a useful tool. We did talk about the Hawk system briefly, and weren't too keen on having that be the right location. There's not a lot. What's that?
Who wasn't?
Just the recommendation from SCH.
The engineer doesn't
The
want
engineer.
like Hawk.
No, not for that situation. The Hawk system is intended for more 4-lane roads. And Dean, I don't know if you can chime in on the Hawk. You probably have a little more experience with that and kind of where those are best utilized.
Yeah, so there's a few comments on Hawk systems. Generally, Hawk systems work best in mid-block locations because, so if you think about Hawks are like an actual traffic signal. So legally, red light, like a signal, you have to stop. And when you're at an intersection, there's kind of some ambiguity as to where you're going to stop. You're going to stop in the middle of the intersection. You're going to stop back, clear the intersection, which is where it should be. And then also, people kind of coming off the Y or coming from Diamond Drive might not be able to see that signal system and see that it's red, so they would have to stop there. And then So just intersections, it's a lot harder to get that to work properly. The RRFBs, they are not like a red light stop. More RFBs are not as prohibitive, I guess, as the Hawk systems are.
What's RFB? Say that.
The RRFB, Rapid Rectangular Flashing Beacon, is what's there right now. It's kind of, if you push the button, the yellow lights flash rapidly. It's to get the driver's attention that, hey, there's a pedestrian there that you need to pay attention to. The RFBs also have a light on the side generally that flashes so that the side street people can know that, hey, the system is activated, so you pay attention to the people that are crossing across the street there too. So just in general, they're more suited for intersection use than Hawk systems are. Not to say that there aren't Hawk systems out there that are at intersections. There are. It's just that there's a few problems with
Why
Hawk
don't we just put
systems.
up the four-way stop lights?
Stop, like a
On
signal
Diamond.
or a stop sign,
Signals.
or they did not look at signals. With traffic signals, there's various warrants and stuff that have to be met.
Well, either way, I made a commitment to the people up there that I'm not going to support anything unless we can safely cross kids across that street. So we need to dig into this harder and figure out, and we're going to have to spend money, period, for the safety of the people, of our kids up there.
So
I'm not changing my mind on that. I'm not getting off on you, but
yeah, sure. Can I also add to that? Mike was saying that RFB, they suggested keeping that in place there. With an island in the middle, there's also an opportunity to put up a flashing light pole in the middle as well. And so if you're driving along, say, Vine Street, and you the poles in the middle, if they're able to be there, like really catch your attention because they're really in your line of sight as you're driving down the road. So that would be probably better for compliance for people seeing them and then yielding to pedestrians across the street. So
Were you saying stoplight or stop sign?
lights.
Lights? Gotcha.
Covered crosswalks, landing areas. So that was kind of their recommendations, is the medians, moving the crosswalks back off the intersections, the RFB addition there. And then to Randy, to your point, this, again, item 8A, this is a project that we identified between city staff and school staff that is important, that this would be included in the Safe Routes to School grant to try and get this funded and get this built sooner rather than later. So,
Well, is it going to be coincided with that development?
we
Hopefully.
we will, from the development standpoint, we're going to ask or request that median be built when they raise Vine Street so that we don't have to pay for it,
No,
So, but yeah, right.
absolutely.
Yeah, right. So, yes, that is the thought
Because up
process.
until now, everything that you said, I would ask the developers open up more,
Even further to the west, like by Diamond, beyond,
well, up to Diamond.
up to
for sure.
Diamond. Yeah,
I mean, because they're directly affected by everything,
sure.
just like everybody else who goes through that whole area will be.
Yeah,
Yeah, they've been good. They've committed to what they've said they're going to commit, but safety is number one. And
Yeah.
I know you know that.
yeah. And the other thing moving forward too is, the traffic signal at Wisconsin, right? I mean, that was suggested in this report as well as,
Who had the forethought to stub that in way back? Huh?
so I mean, that'll be something moving forward from a council perspective, looking at when we want to bond for that project, because it is going to be, a larger scale project in the city. So it's nothing that, we're going to be able to take out of operating or apply, we may be able to apply for some grants, but just saying that is in here.
That's
recommending
based on
that.
the tunnel. I mean, that's the other thing
Yeah.
I had suggested as well, because we've done it in the
Yep.
city.
Yep. So the tunnel actually going underneath. So with the tunnel, the bridge has its limitations, but with the tunnel, you also have to meet those same slope requirements for ADA purposes. And with the right-of-way that's available along Vine, which isn't very much, in the utilities that are underneath the ground along Vine Street, it wasn't, from a financial standpoint, it would probably even cost more than a bridge just because you're moving all the utilities, fiber optics, communications, just to even get a tunnel underneath Diamond. Now, maybe there's a possibility at Carmichael and Vine,
Yeah,
at that location.
further, yeah.
Yeah, so, and staff has been in discussions with the developer moving forward, looking at possibilities with that, but at Diamond, it's not, we have a lot more other projects that we can build for $3 million than a tunnel underneath Vine at Diamond,
Okay.
so.
Yeah, I mean, don't take them off the table, because if we need to move it down, past at least the lift station,
Sure, yep,
and we're not caught.
Yeah.
Without doing something. I mean, fine, medians are a start.
Right.
RFP's a start. It's not the end be all, though.
nope.
And I don't know what the others, that grant thing or the school, what they've come up with.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. Do you have anything else to add, Dean?
Oh, I was just gonna say with the tunnel, you also have to deal with stormwater issues because it creates a little point underneath, and you gotta have like a whole pumping system, and tunnels get damp, and you got also the visibility issues with that.
Safety.
Concern about.
Yeah, but they've been built.
No, I'm just saying, just bringing it up that those are things you have to consider with tunnels. So,
One kid gets killed up there, it's well worth whatever we have to do. Because of somebody being stupid. That's where I'm at when it comes to that, so.
Okay.
Anything else?
No, that kind of covers like I said, if you have any questions, if you read through it, have any questions, feel free to get a hold of myself or Dean.
Mike, did this help you? Did this help the Public Works Committee kind of focus in on what needs to get done up there?
Yeah.
Are we getting somewhere? Are we spinning?
Well,
wheels?
it certainly helps with grant writing purposes that we actually had a study done, and it justifies going forward with some improvements up there with the medians, trying to slow traffic down, creating, pedestrian refuge, looking at, where the crosswalks are at, where the traffic is turning left, right, so on and so forth. So this was helpful from a staff perspective on how we're trying to plan to make it safer up there. Absolutely. Yep.
Because most of the time, we always get these engineering studies back, and it's buku, this much money, and then we're sitting here trying to figure out, do we spend it or not?
Yeah.
And not justify the ends for the means to the end.
And that's what was nice about this study is it was, the recommendations weren't unrealistic, right? I mean, we did some estimations on the medians, and if we were to install all of them, it's about 100 to 130, somewhere in that range off the top of my head. But, I mean, it's a feasible number that we can move forward and get some things done up there.
Okay.
And I gotta say, with those medians, I mean, you take a look at what we did on Hanley.
Yeah, Hanley is a perfect
that is
example.
a different roadway, much safer.
Yep.
So I'm excited to see that in this plan.
All right, fair enough. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike, and thanks. What, I forget your first name already. Dean. Sorry. I'm not one of those guys that always calls your office, says, hey, do this.
Can only wish.
Do we need any action on that, or what are you looking for any action, Mike? I mean, we can certainly recommend what we feel.
I mean, it's gone to Public Works, it's gone to Public Safety. Does council need to hear a debriefing on it? It would probably be.
I would think so.
I would
Yeah.
think so too. So maybe recommend approval to the draft to City Council. Yeah.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Thanks. All right, 7, discussion possible action on pedestrian crossing flag policy, stop yield sign policy.
So as you remember, last
Mr.
meeting,
Dean,
you asked us as staff to go back and make a recommendation, so.
I'm sorry,
I said at the last meeting, he asked us as staff to go back.
these two. I assume.
This committee, in a quorum, asked us to go back as staff and then bring a recommendation. This is.
Yep. So, yeah, so we went and took a look at both policies. First, the stop and yield sign policy, and then secondly, the pedestrian crossing flag policy. So I obviously was not here for, when these policies were originally thought of, developed, what the thought process was behind, why exactly what this was in here but that wasn't, kind of thing.
It was put in place because we didn't want to sign the crap out of the
Yep.
city.
No, that's a great purpose for having it. So I appreciate saying that. I took a look at, I'll first go through the stop and yield sign policy. Took a look at kind of what was there. Also took a look at what's called the MUTCDs. So that's the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. It's kind of the traffic engineer's Bible is how I've heard it called before. It's essentially, gives people direction as to what effective traffic control is and how things should be installed and shouldn't be installed and that kind of thing. MUTCD gives certain things that are shall do or shall not do, and there's no ambiguity in that, you have to or have to not do those things. There's also things that are guidance, and they're phrased as should. So you should think about X, Y, and Z when you are thinking of putting up a stop sign or a yield sign or whatever. And those things, are backed up by research. That's a whole team of people at the federal government and state agencies have put lots of time, more so than I have, even to look into. So they've come up with this, recommendations of things you should look for when you're thinking about installing a stop or yield sign or any other sign you can think of. And a lot of the existing policy that was out there, a lot of the things that were in there were from the MUTCD or previous versions thereof or something like that. What I wanted to do with the stop and yield sign policy is I wanted to kind of ground the policy and making sure we're following MUTCD no matter, when it is that, MUTCD comes out with revisions every so often and based on more research that's done, that kind of thing. And so I kind of wanted this policy to be a bit more of a living document and not date us or, get real specific on this and that and whatnot that we're going to be following, but rather we need to focus back on what the MUTCD is saying. And then I also wanted to clarify kind of what the procedure is for when somebody comes to this meeting or city council or wherever they call us up or something like that. How formalize what the procedure is that we should be following whenever this happens, so we're not just willy-nilly doing something, or public works guys are just going out and installing a stop sign without having thought through it all, that kind of thing. Not that they do that, but I'm just saying that just to make sure that's not happening. I don't know if you've had a chance to read through what I proposed. But essentially for the procedure, I wanted to, say all requests for stop or yield signs or multi-way stops or whatever first go to the police chief so that he's aware that this is something that's been requested and thus will come to this committee. He'll direct me to do a study to make sure that, is a stop sign is this a good place for a stop sign? Is it a good place for a yield sign? Is there something else that we should do instead? Kind of holistically think about, X intersection, does this make sense for this spot? Each intersection is different, although there's commonalities between intersections, there's unique things about everything. So we need to kind of make sure that we're thinking of all those things, when we're going about making decisions that are, affect safety for people. So I want to make sure we're not willy-nilly doing something where it doesn't make sense. So I also gave in here kind of, what my study is going to, what I'm committed to, taking into account the things in there, vehicular, bicycle, pedestrian, other traffic volumes, number and angle of all approaches, the speed of traffic approaching this intersection, sight distance that's available, crash experience, description of what the MUTCD says we should be doing and how this intersection matches up with what that's saying we should or shouldn't do. Explanation of any engineering judgment that if the MUTCD says we should do something, but in this case I think it shouldn't be, at least we have an explanation of why we're deviating from the standard or whatever, and then consideration of alternatives. Because sometimes people come to whoever and say, I want a stop sign, when really there's an underlying issue there that the stop sign is their kind of proposed solution to, but we need to, maybe the issue is not the one that should be corrected by a stop sign. So just kind of identifying the issue and if that's the right solution. So I did put a few, typically we're not going to approve stop or yield signs in certain conditions. Those are kind of carried over from the last policy. So yeah, once I do a study, it will come here for your consideration. You'll deliberate if you agree or don't agree or want to, ask questions, whatnot. You'll make a recommendation to send it to the Public Works Committee because you're talking about signing, which is a Public Works function as well. So we feel like they should be involved in considering it as well. Or just, if it doesn't make sense to do a stop sign in a certain spot, like you can just say, no, we're not going to consider it and just be done with it. So if you guys agree, recommend to the Public Works Committee, they do the same thing, consider it, say yes or no. If they say yes, go to the City Council, they make a decision, we install a sign. So any questions, concerns,
So
thoughts?
first comes to.
First here.
First here.
Yep.
Then
Yep.
we follow that policy.
Yep.
Got it.
I would be concerned about us, when we recommend something to go to council, I don't want to recommend it to Public Works where it could possibly get stopped. Because we've done our decision process, and if we have to send it to Public Works and they say no, then what did we just do? See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Might not have money for all the signs you're passing.
Then it's our job to find that money.
Thanks, Scott.
Yeah.
I have no problem with it, just, and I'll be involved with the conversation, so if something does arise where, if, your standard stop sign here or there, you really don't need it, but if it's a larger scale issue, then maybe both committees, make that.
I mean, I know it's always been that way. We've always sent, and we always spending your guys' sign budget. We don't have a budget. Well, we have a budget, but as he hides his head. It's, that's the way it's always been, and not necessarily that's right, but that's the way it is. But do you understand my thought is that, then why would we bother? Just to send it to full council.
Well, in Public Works Committee, the committee is on City Council, so it'd be a little bit duplicative, I guess, so it'd be the same people
Remember, you know what
anyway.
I'm saying, Judge?
Yeah. I don't think we need an extra stop there if we're making a recommendation, unless, there have been times when we've had to send it over to Public
Sure.
Works in order to get things refined,
Mm-hmm.
but most of the time, it's gone right to council.
And we really have not abused that sign. I mean, they're obviously for good reason.
Well, and the two of you are going to be making recommendations when we get the request anyway, so, yeah, I agree with you, Randy. I don't think we need an extra stop and slow things down too, and usually we want to get things taken care of.
Okay.
Any thought?
Do we want it written that we do have the flexibility to do either or? You know what I mean? Like,
Kind of an
not just
optional-
one, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It either
So
can
fit
go to
or
council
so-
or,
So, Public Safety Committee would make the decision on whether to send it to Public Works or to council.
Okay.
And with input from city staff.
Sure.
Otherwise, it looks pretty good like it was with the two before. I mean, not much change, but
Yeah.
good recommendations.
Yeah, and I would also just like it to actually be adopted, because there's some
Yes.
ambiguity of if it was actually ever adopted and whatnot. And this policy doesn't really commit us to like a lot of specific things. It's just kind of more like formalizing a procedure and the things we're going to be looking for every time a stop sign request comes in and whatnot.
And you want
So-
a policy or guideline? We had it as a guideline before. It was never really policy. but
Yeah.
We followed the guideline.
I guess where I'm coming from is I'd like to have it as a policy. That way it kind of enshrines the actual procedure that we're going to be doing. And yeah, and it gives background and stuff too. So that's my personal take on it. But if you guys want it as a guideline, I can live with that. But that's just my suggestion.
I think
So,
policy is better. It gives us
Policy, yeah.
more of a stiffer direction.
How often do you think the policy needs to be reviewed? Every time the new standards come out from,
yeah, probably and the METCD gets updated probably every 10 years or so.
Oh, so it's not that
it's not
often.
like it's
Okay.
happening every year or something like that. So I would say put it on the calendar, to review, and that could be just on us too, to make sure that we're keeping up with, when things change, to make sure we go through all this and make sure it all still jives, and if it doesn't, then we'll, update as needed. So if you want me to add that to this, I can certainly do that. That this policy will be updated, after updates to the METCD or something.
I think that's a good idea. If we're going to have a policy, we should have something in there on when it should be reviewed.
Okay.
so do we need to
We
move
need
this?
to move contingent and then
Right.
on those changes.
Okay.
And then it'll go to full council.
Okay,
Sure.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second with the question. So are we saying that it's going to be coming back to public safety one more time before it goes to council, or is it
No.
just
The
to
change-
council?
He'll make
We'll
those changes.
make the
It'll-
changes and,
Council,
Okay.
perfect. All right, second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 8, safe routes to school update. Mr. Mike.
So back in 2016, the Hudson School District, City of Hudson, and Village of North Hudson, and Jeff, I don't know if you were here when they first started this, but there was kind of driven by the school district to put together a safe routes to school plan. They used the West Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission, helped them put together the safe routes to school plan. And at that time, they looked at just K through 5. Correct?
8.
K through 8. Thank you. So now from that plan that was, started in 2016 and completed in 2018, we're starting to move into the implementation phase of the plan, and seeing that, the schools are, of course, located within the city limits. There is some areas where, school district, city kind of partnership comes into place, And so just to kind of give you an update of where we're at, city staff and school district staff have been meeting here the last couple of months, kind of going through and prioritizing the projects based upon the plan that was put together back in 2018. And we will be, city staff and school district staff will be attending both the school district, school board meeting, and then the council meeting on the 20th to give a debriefing of the projects that we're going to be moving forward on, and kind of give a breakdown of what those cost estimates are. We're still kind of finalizing those numbers, but we want to inform both the school board and the city council that this is going to be a joint application, and we're doing that because you get a better chance of receiving those grant dollars because you have buy-in from both the school district and the city to help kind of, with some of the recommendations in the plan. So like I said, it's just more of an information that the grant is due on January 24th. So we have a tight timeline We're going to be going to school board next week, and then, like I said, council on the 20th, and then based upon discussions, recommendations, approvals from those two boards, we'll be applying for the grant on the 24th. So that's kind of the update that I have for you, and we'll go into further detail of kind of the projects that we're looking at. I mentioned a couple of them tonight, so you get an idea of what we're looking at, around the high school, so on and so forth. So that's all I got for you tonight.
All right,
All right, thank you.
thank you. All right, EMS update. Bridget or John?
All right, want to go through these documents here. I think I'll start with the colored document titled the Hudson City 2019 Annual Review of EMS Calls. So this is just kind of giving you an overall snapshot look of our call volumes here. I just started at September 1st, even though we officially didn't start till September 9th. We were doing some extra coverage there, so there was some overlap. So we started at September 1st. So from September 1st to December 31st, we had a total of 346 EMS requests in the city of Hudson. Of those, 274 of them, we were requested to respond lights and sirens. There were 70 calls that we were required not to respond lights and sirens. So of the emergency response calls, we had an average response time of 5 minutes and 21 seconds. Also, when I run the data, there was 20 runs that had a average response time of 6 minutes and 21 seconds. So it kind of shows me the high group, and it actually segregates them out, the addresses and time of day. But our overall response time was 5 minutes and 21 seconds. Also, we look at the number of times that our ambulances are responding from outside the Hudson service area. When I say Hudson service area, we do look at this area over here, the Hudson area, as Village of North Hudson, City of Hudson, Town of Hudson, Town of Troy, not really Warren, but that Warren is included in that. So when I say our Hudson service area, that's what I include in that. So there were 7 times in that time frame that the ambulance was responding to a call outside of the Hudson service area. 3 of those 7 calls, the ambulance was directly across the river here at Highway 95 and 94. I only bring that up because in those cases, they had response times still 6 minutes or less. So still, even though they weren't in the city, they had very respectable response times.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Okay, the total EMS calls of 346, these are only the city calls, not the...
Only the city calls.
Only city, okay.
Only in the city. Yep. One time in this time frame, September 1st to December 31st, we requested mutual aid. That was actually mutual aid from St. Croix EMS, and it was to the hospital to do an interfacility transfer that we turned down because we didn't have the appropriate coverage for the area, and the hospital didn't want to wait. So that was the one mutual aid call. It's still, in our books, it's considered mutual aid, so we counted that as a mutual aid.
So you requested the mutual aid?
We technically did not.
I mean, okay, but I mean, that's what you mean by this,
That's
not
what I mean by that.
somebody else requested from you.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's still, if someone else came into our area and did a call, that's typically our responsibility, then we count that as a mutual aid call. Just for your information, in 2019, we did 745 transfers out of Hudson Hospital. When we look at the entire service area of Hudson, since September 1st of 2019, we've done 502 calls. Within that whole service area, we're averaging just a little over 5 minutes, 5.5 minutes as a response time.
So John, 502 of the total Hudson area, 346 of which were the city then?
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. And then just FYI, and there's a document in here that shows our volume for our overall service. So overall, in 2019, we did 8,875 calls.
John, if I recall, when we were going through the whole process of what we're going to do with EMS, times are a lot higher. So this is a good
Yeah, it's
that
very
you guys
good.
are doing.
And like I had said many times here, I really anticipate our response time to be similar to what we have in the city of North St. Paul. Similar size geographically. I think you guys have a little more geographic area, but, we only have one ambulance there, and we're doing 1,000 calls a year out of that base. So, knowing the volume here, we're going to have 2 ambulances here. I felt very comfortable in saying that we were going to meet or exceed that response. We're going to have days.
Of
They're
course.
going to come where we're busy and we're not able
Summertime,
to.
it's a perfect example, yeah.
But I would say overall, we're going to exceed what your expectations were for us. The next slide you see is just, again, it's more of a FYI for you guys. This is from September to December 31st. This is our dispatch reason, why we were dispatched. This just shows you the numbers. This only is for the city of Hudson. So it doesn't include any of the other areas we serve, only the city of Hudson. The next one is what hospitals we transported to. Again, just in the calls we responded to in the city of Hudson, these were where patients were transported to. Our policy is we transport the patient to the hospital of their choice within reason. Typically, we're not going to go from a 911 call to Rochester. We'll advise them, we'll go to the hospital, get seen at the local hospital, and more than likely we'll end up taking them to Rochester at some point, but we'd like them to be evaluated at a local hospital. Next slide. This is the type of service request for the entire service area. So it kind of gives you a snapshot of what we did in the other areas of the Hudson service area. So the difference here in numbers, I'll explain that because it could be confusing. I included the interfacility transfers in this time frame, the September 1st to December 31st, on the total ambulance request. So that's why you're seeing 593 in the city of Hudson.
So the
And so on.
transfer requests, John, those are all compiled into that 593?
Yeah, correct. So there was,
Yep, okay.
I have another slide that will, maybe I don't. There was 200, right here, it's on the same slide. So there's 247 transfers that occurred between September 1st and December 31st. So that's added to the total volume. So when I look at our operation here in Hudson, in my eyes, in our book of business, the transfers are part of what we do day to day. So, and then the last slide on that one is just our overall types of service requests for our entire service area. Again, it's just in there for you guys to look at and compare. The last sheet, this is the response time sheet. And part of this, I think in October when I was here, I recommended that moving forward when you guys want data, this is kind of the way we would like to present it. And if there's concerns or, individual issues that come up that we need to look at, we can drill down deeper into those isolated cases. So again, we'll look high level into everything, and then you guys can look through it. So the other thing I want to comment here again, just so you're not confused by the numbers, if people are very mathematical and you look at this, you're going to say these numbers don't add up. So in this, the last report, that's a separate document with 2 pages on it. What's not included in these numbers are standbys. There's 2 different types of standbys. Those were excluded when I ran the data, because typically for standbys, fire standbys, we respond routine. So those are pulled out of that data. So if you look at the numbers, it will eventually add up. So on here, there's a lot of information on this. I think what you guys want to look at is that back page. And then the blue area on the bottom shows the response times, both in a average response time and then fractile. Fractile meaning the 90th percentile.
Thanks for adding
So
that.
8 minutes and 63 is the fractile, but 5.22 is the average response time.
Now, the fractile that you do there is including responses that you don't do with lights and sirens, right?
No, fractile, so this document is the same, looking at lights and siren response, but fractile is a different measurement of the,
Right, but that's taking into consideration the ones that you're responding to without lights and sirens as well, correct? Or-
no,
No?
it's the same,
It's only lights and sirens?
only lights and sirens, yeah.
Got it.
So
Okay.
90%, so what- you know, how you present that is 90% of the time of these calls, we are on scene within 8 minutes, and
Okay, these are only lights and sirens in the blue.
these are only lights
Okay.
and siren response.
And, let me make a note. All right, and does this define your response time, when it starts and when it ends?
Response time starts when our dispatch receives the call
Dispatch receives call, okay?
to the time the ambulance is on scene.
So when Alina gets the call,
That's correct.
okay? To on scene,
Yeah.
okay. That is listed somewhere
Yeah,
there?
right here, so unit notified by dispatch to unit en route. Range. Oh, I'm sorry, that's not it.
No.
Yeah, never mind, it's not. written
Okay.
here, sorry.
And the thing I will add, you know, in the beginning, when we were going through negotiation and we were in the township, we openly reported that there were some delays in us receiving the call. That has dramatically changed.
I am responding is the difference there, or radio?
No, it's just the procedure has changed. I mean, we're getting an example today, while our dispatch is giving us the call, St. Croix County is paging out everyone else to the call at the same time. That's what we see in all of our other areas. And it's the way that they would process that 911 call.
Gotcha.
So, you know, the other piece of that we've never really talked about is, in the past, every transfer that was happening out of the hospital was going into the 911 system. That doesn't happen today. It goes right directly to us. So we've pulled 700 and some calls out of the 911 center. That's huge,
That's a big impact.
yeah. In a positive way.
Right,
It's calls they
right.
don't have to be dealing with. They don't have to be calling around to see if someone can do that transfer.
When did that change, out of curiosity? Like,
Well, it
It's just
changed
like-
when we started doing the township and the transfers.
got it,
So it's been a full year of that.
gotcha.
So Alina, I don't remember if I said this before, I don't think I did. Bridget was at the November meeting, but Alina has been working with the county on their new CAD that they're looking at. And the reason they're working together up front is for that push data that they want to do that will be instantaneous. The call comes in, they hit one button, and there's no phone call anymore, so that technology has been out there, it's being used all the time. Alina uses it right now in Ramsey County, all the calls in Bloomington and the airport. The dispatchers love it. I know they would love to have it up here, so that's to come. I think an update on the River Falls proposal, just so we're transparent with everything. We, Bridget, myself, and Nate Paulsher attended the mandatory meeting at River Falls if you were going to put in for the RFP. So we attended that meeting, not knowing if Alina was still serious about putting in for the RFP. And we always said that if Alina was serious about doing it, we were going to back out. And Alina confirmed to us that they are going to continue with it, and we did back out. So we sent them a letter just saying that our commitment, we just don't see that we would add value to River Falls and to this community here. And our choice was to focus more on this area.
It's good to hear.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any updates on the building?
Yeah, until Scott ruined my excitement today. We've been told by the contractor that they plan to turn the building over to us on January 23rd. Wow. And Scott said they haven't put the sprinkler system in yet, so we have a
In
meeting.
your building?
Yeah. I wondered why the ceiling tiles weren't in yet. So Bridget and I have a meeting with the contractor tomorrow morning, and we'll find out where we're at with that. But he said no one's contacted him. He just went up there, and that really surprises me because these guys have just been on all the subcontractors to be getting things done. So we'll find out what's going on tomorrow. Scott thinks at this point it could delay it a couple weeks, so second week in February.
Okay, good.
I did talk to Administrator Reeves that, I told him that the timeline has changed and we'll potentially be out of here quicker. Just so you guys all had a heads up that that was happening, so you weren't blindsided by that. We're really excited to get in there. Just, it's a new building and it's different for our operation, so everybody's really excited about it. But this is terrible here. Our crew's trying to cross the street here to get to calls. Mm-hmm. So we have not made our mandatory en route time of 90 seconds since we've been down here in the building. Can't do it. I shouldn't say that. Our average, so we're not hitting our average, but, if the crews are out and about, obviously we're hitting it, but, when the call comes in to get up and go out there, it's really tough to make that. So right now, we're about just a little bit over 2 minutes. So that's gonna give us some added, improved response times once we get up there too. Bridget, do you have anything to add, like staffing? I think we should talk about staffing.
Yeah, we, so after kind of doing a big group hiring about a year and a half ago, and then again at the end of last summer, early fall, we ended up with leftover 3 full-time positions that were still open. So we did post for them. We got what looks to be a pretty good candidate pool. So we've just been reviewing the applications we have so far, and we'll be interviewing in the next 2 to 3 weeks if schedules all work out. So I'm pretty confident that we can get the last 3 that we need with this group. We've already had some pretty good recommendations from people that have worked with these people, and people that were recommended to us by people who either work for us or other people that we know. So we feel pretty confident about that, and we'll be up to full staff for sure by summer, trained and on the street. So
That's just for this area?
our whole,
Your whole?
yep. So all of our medics work in all of the in all of the
Okay.
area. So we don't have dedicated staff for just the Hudson area. They would work at any of our bases
We
depending on their
require
shift.
that. Because you're covering at each of the bases, so
Right.
if these 2 trucks go out, like this morning, we had 3 calls, boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, everybody has to be
Yeah, they
certified for
have to
both
be
Wisconsin and
familiar with the
Minnesota.
areas. You know what, people love working over here. The crews last week were saying, you know, we can't wait to get in our new building, but it's really nice to be downtown. They love being downtown.
Access to all the restaurants.
Yeah. But you know, when we did the original hiring, we hired everyone that we needed for these 2 added ambulances. And we had one person that was out on maternity leave, and then her husband got a job up in Hibbing, Minnesota. So they just 2 weeks ago, I think, moved. So that opened a position. And we had one person that we hired that just moved on within a few months after on the job. So the other positions, the way we do our scheduling is our schedule's done, and we kind of got to time our scheduling with our hiring process, because to go back and pull people off the schedule, because, you know, we got people that are scheduled overtime, and then to take that away from them kind of hurts them a little bit. So we're always careful how we do that. So we time our hirings on that. So we're not, there's not like open shifts. We're not in a hurry to get it done, but we're moving forward with it.
Seen a lot of sick calls at all over the holidays?
Yeah, we had just this weekend, we had two people call in for 24-hour shifts Sunday, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
We do really good on getting our shifts covered, so it's kind of amazing. It's scary, but every time it happens, someone picks it up, you know. I should talk about the storm, the ice storm, a couple weeks ago. Bill, I appreciate that Bill had actually texted me in the middle of that storm and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about you guys today." As you texted me, I had out on Highway 36, we had one of our trucks in the ditch there, and we had 2 other ambulances stuck on the road. Not in the ditch, but just stuck on the road, waiting for the DOT to get there to sand it. That was interesting. That was an interesting morning, I think, for everyone. But the reason I want to bring it up to you is we actually made some changes based on the situation of that morning. Right away that morning, I think at 6:30 in the morning, we had 2 calls in Stillwater. So one of the Hudson trucks moves over into the Bayport area, and one call was just down the road from the hospital, so they had a real quick turnaround. And then you guys had I was told, 10 semis jackknifed on the interstate here. So they were on Highway 95 headed back over here because the crew change was at 7 a.m. and they couldn't get back over here because the highway was shut down. So they went around, went up to the Stillwater crossing, crossed, and came back over here. The Hudson crew had a call in town here. They must have done better on the roads over here than they did over there because they didn't have any problems getting to their call, but they couldn't get back in the station because it was, once they came out of the station, they slid down the hill.
Right. Wow.
But at that point, when we knew how bad it was, we kept all of our trucks stationed at their bases. So we didn't move coverage. So the whole time during that storm, we kept the 2 trucks here the whole time in town. It just wasn't worth the risk to be. We were going to have long response times regardless,
Right.
but everyone was. You know, law enforcement wasn't going to get there anytime soon, and we just did the best we could. So anyways, that's kind of the latest. And then I think the last thing, the critical care class coming up.
So we have a critical care class for some of our medics that starts here in the middle of January. We have 11 of our paramedics that will be going through the class. So these were 11 out of the last 2 hiring groups that were ready to go to this class. So our goal is always to have all of our staff trained at the critical care level, but as there's kind of always some amount of turnover, we never get quite to 100%, but this will bring us pretty close for now. So they're very excited about it. They've already been into the books and studying in preparation for the class. So it'll last them until the end of March, and then they'll get their certifications and be functioning as critical care. So
very good.
Good report. Thank
Sorry,
you.
long report.
Chief?
Mine won't be that long. Not a lot to report on. Still working through our shortages. We're technically, 6 short right now because we've got 4 in field training and then 2 open positions. So we're working through that. It's been busy. We appreciate all the support that we got today on Law Enforcement Appreciation Day. Lots of people throughout the community gave us a lot of support, so that was nice to see. The ice storms can stop anytime. Those are problematic for everybody, not just those in public safety, but even the community trying to get around and make a simple trip to church or the store is painful. So we've been able to work through that pretty well. Very positive feedback on working with the Lakeview staff. Our officers have nothing but good things to say. Very professional staff, very quick to arrive, very helpful, very willing to replenish equipment that we use out of our bags and stuff. So, I mean, the relationship there has been very good.
Good to hear.
We've heard the same thing with your officers, so.
Good.
It's nice.
Good.
Any other questions or comments? Anything for future agenda items? Nothing?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, everybody.